listening to the longest running and number one rated podcast for all things San Antonio Spurs basketball. This is the Spurscast with your host, Paul Garcia.
Welcome back to another episode of the Spurscast. I'm joined by Project Spurs writer Jazz Tamir. Jazz and I will discuss the Spurs' opening preseason loss to the Houston Rockets. Let's jump right into this episode. Jazz, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. You know, the Spurs, unfortunately, they're kind of, I don't know how to say what happened that first preseason game. It's like, that's kind of what everybody expected, but then it's also not fun, to lose by 38 points. So, go ahead.
30, I was expecting to struggle a little bit, but it hit my heart kind of hard.
Yeah, that was a little rough.
Okay.
And that's a team that's supposed to finish, basically like bottom 5 in the NBA. Like, that's kind of scary that that's already the result of one of the worst teams.
I was very confident about a win, the opening win. I mean, we definitely. So I was thinking, but I mean, you never know. After a draft, you never know what can happen together and practicing. So, oh gosh. Yeah.
So let's go.
It was a struggle, but we made it.
Yeah, so let's dive right into this loss for the Spurs. We're going to first recap the game as a whole, and then we'll talk about a few of the players. So let's first begin here. So as I mentioned there, the Spurs did lose their first preseason game on the road in Houston by 38 points. The starters, because this was a big question of who's going to be in the starting lineup, it was Trey Jones at the point, Josh Richardson at the 2, Devin Vassell at the 3, Keita Bates-Diop at the 4, and Jakob Poeltl at the 5. In the second half, we do want to note that Richardson, Vassell, and Poeltl, all the veterans, did not play in that second half, so they only played in the first half. This game basically lasted pretty competitively for about 10 and a half minutes. Then by 1:26 left in the first quarter, Eric Gordon hits a three-pointer. The Rockets go up by 12, and that was pretty much it. I mean, it just started to spiral downward for the Spurs and just blew up. One key reason why the Spurs lost so bad was because of their shooting. The team shot 11 of 42 from the three-point line, 26%. And then here's a quote from Coach Pop after the game, just talking about the shooting and the physicality of the team. He says, "In general, the shooting was pretty poor. And when you're going back in transition defense all the time, all kinds of bad things are going to happen. You can't just do it over and over and over again with the missed shots. That was the worst part of the game. The second thing was physicality. We let them go where they wanted to go. They were much more physical in that sense, and that's got to be the biggest improvement we make overall." I do want to note that you see that in the numbers. Defensively, the Spurs allowed 30-plus points in every single quarter of this game. And then also, I do want to note that Keldon Johnson and Josh Primo did not play because they are out due to injury. So what were your initial thoughts, Jazz, on the Spurs' opening loss?
I agree with Pop. I mean, especially in the beginning, in the first 2 quarters, I was like, guys, you do not have to. We will be okay if you just stop right here where we are and learn from our mistakes and a different plan, because it just wasn't working for us until I think shot a 3, and then Devin definitely put up a couple, and it kind of surprised me, only playing in the first half and not playing that long and still being the top scorer of the night. It surprised me that he could do it, but I was definitely expecting more from some other guys in the beginning. I mean, he came out there and he did what he was supposed to do as a new leader on the squad, so that is something in him. I was missing something we didn't really see. It was kind of like Houston was taking control of the pace the whole time, and I appreciate that the guys didn't kind of slow the game down and make them play Spurs basketball. Got in and he really chased down these guys off of fast breaks. He went in for some blocks. He paint. That is what I was looking for in the beginning, and it seemed like we were kind of just letting them pull them all over the place, kind of on the court. So I definitely agree with Pop in that.
Yeah, so now let's talk about a few of the players that, their stats at least stuck out, because, again, this is a pretty, this game was pretty much over very early. I mean, second quarter and beyond, this game was pretty much over. So Devin Vassell was the leading scorer for the team. He scores 13 points on 13 shot attempts with 1 assist in 19 minutes. One thing I noted was the fact that, this is a team that's missing a lot of playmaking now in the half court, and Devin kind of could get to some of his spots and shoot mid-rangers, cutbacks in the paint, but it was also a struggle for him. He's going to learn. That's going to be something that he has to learn from and develop. Isaiah Roby played very well. He ends up with 12 points on 8 shot attempts. He does a lot of everything: 5 rebounds, 2 steals, 3 turnovers, 1 block in 18 minutes. Coach Pop, this is the second time now in a week that he's been very complimentary of Roby. He said after the game, he's got a lot of skills. He's a good ball handler. He can rebound. He's playing defense, and he's trying to do everything the way we want to do it. But I thought that Isaiah Roby did a good job tonight at both ends of the floor. So Roby is one of those players who got a compliment from Coach Pop after a 30-point loss. That's a good thing for him. Zach Collins finishes with 11 points on 10 shot attempts with 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 5 fouls, 2 blocks in 20 minutes. And it's important to note that Collins is healthy again, so he's able to start getting more minutes. Malachi Branham didn't play into the third quarter. The Rockets broadcast made it seem like he might not play due to some sort of injury, but Branham didn't mention anything. And so anyway, when he came out there, he was very efficient. He ends up with 10 points on just 5 shot attempts with 2 turnovers in 14 minutes. He says that for him, his mindset was just to have fun and play free. Jakob Poeltl only played in one half. Just Jakob Poeltl things, 9 points and 7 shots. He actually took a mid-ranger. He ends up with 10 boards in just one half of. Yeah, that was different. So, but he took it. He has 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks in 17 minutes. And then Jeremy Sohan, I want to note because we didn't get to see him in the summer league because he had COVID at the time, so he couldn't play. And so for those of us that haven't watched Sohan or didn't watch any college basketball like me, it was really interesting to watch him. And yeah, he's definitely what a lot of the scouting reports said is that, yeah, he's not going to give 20 points a night, but he's a player who does so much, especially defensively. He's just all over the place. He moves very well for being a player who's like 6'9", 6'10". He finishes with 5 points. He made a 3-pointer. 4 rebounds, 4 fouls, 1 steal, 2 turnovers, 3 blocks. I mean, 3 blocks as a rookie already in your first preseason game in just 17 minutes. So I was very impressed with someone. Who were some of the players that you were impressed with in this game?
Honestly, all that were mentioned, I can just go back that I like. I mean, we definitely touched on Devin. Not surprised that he was a leader on the court, not to score. But I would like to mention, of course, he had a rough start in the beginning. You could see when there was this play in the second quarter, and there was Poeltl, and it went to Trey, and then Trey kind of threw a fast pass to Devin, and he went up for a net, and he was just kind of off a little bit. But once he got into his groove, he we kind of so that was great. But I will say, as far as efficiency and shooting percentages for the night, Isaiah and Malachi were definitely probably the most efficient when they got on the court, making clean decisions, but still putting up shots, which I think is important. Coach said they were not shots just weren't going in at the beginning and couldn't make. That's what was confusing everybody, I think. But Malachi and Isaiah really got on and made some good decisions, made some clean decisions. I'm kind of upset about the turn body, except, Devin, we don't see turnovers from him quite ever, honestly, stay consistent. But everybody else, I wish that we would have been a little bit more clean, but I think that comes with communication and kind of learning where everybody's going before they get there and being able to understand how each of your teammates, it's the first game in the season. And so we're not stressing too much about that. I enjoy Sohan. We talked about how he was great defensively. I don't think we need him. I think we get that from other players. Like we can get that from Collins, who I was very impressed tonight. We can get that from Collins. We can get that from Devin. We'll probably get and Isaiah being a great defender and being able to put the ball up. So if Sohan can come and give us those blocks on those guys on the fast breaks and continue doing that for us and getting us the ball back, especially, with some, like, we have a pretty good group, we have a better chance.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you brought up a great point just about the chemistry. The fact that, yes, a lot of these players are back from the old team from last year, but they're missing their lead guard. They're missing Jazz Tamir, who used to be that player who initiated the majority of the offense. And so it is going to be definitely a growing process for a lot of them. There was definitely new teammates as well. So that was also, everybody trying to figure out things, when to attack, when not to attack. We definitely saw a lot of, especially in the half court, like you mentioned, all the turnovers. I think it was like 19 for the team, and the Rockets scored like 26 points off of those turnovers. So that's going to be something where it's going to be a process, and these players are going to get tested. Houston's not going to be one of the best teams in the league, and so when they play like a top 10 defense, I'm just it's going to be an interesting year.
That's what's concerning me, is that they didn't do that great They just took advantage of the possessions that they got from Spurs. And I think that if the Spurs hold on to those possessions and make decisions, then the gap wouldn't have even been that big, even if Houston did take it home. So, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
When they play, it's going to be interesting to see.
This is going to be some tough nights when they play the really good defenses, considering that they struggle against the Rockets. So, all right. So now let's look at some key takeaways that I took away from this game. First of all, Pop. He's just talking about, yes, they did lose by 38 points. They may not win. I don't know if they're going to win a preseason game. It's going to be really tough for this squad. But he did mention, wins are not important right now in the preseason. It's not what he's focused on. Here was his quote. He said, "I don't care. I don't know if we've ever had a winning preseason. That's never been a part of what we need to do. Like, we got to go win those preseason games and get that attitude going." And he even did this little fist bump in the press conference. And he said, "That's baloney. They need to develop as players, as teammates, understanding what the basics are to perform in this league. So the winning isn't part of that right now." So that's kind of what you said, what you mentioned there, Jazz. The fact that these guys, this is what it's about right now. The preseason, learning that team chemistry, learning how to work together, those kind of things. And then now let's just talk about the offense, where I think this is kind of what we expected. Again, losing your all-star Jazz Tamir be a tough season for the Spurs, especially when they cannot get out on the break in the half court. I just noted that, just from the opening tip, the half court offense is going to be a struggle for this team, something we expected. A lot of their team sets, their team plays, where they're making little cuts and moving the ball. A lot of that stuff gets sniffed out pretty early by the defense, and they're able to, get shot contests from 3-point line or from at the rim. And so, and like I mentioned earlier, they just don't have a lot of players who are able to create for themselves. That's going to be a lot of Devin Vassell, who's going to have to do that, and Keldon Johnson whenever he gets healthy, Josh Primo. And then here was the quote from Vassell kind of mentioning this, the fact that they're going to struggle on offense. He said, "If we're not hitting shots, we've still got to be competitive on the defensive end. We've got to hang our hats on the defensive end. We don't have KD talent, so we can't sit here and rely on the offensive end. So we've just got to hang our hats on the defensive end as well. And we'll be fine." So what were your thoughts there? The fact that this is kind of something that we're going to expect is this team is going to struggle in the half-court offense.
Yeah, I struggle if they don't, like we said, get that chemistry together and really figure everybody's assets can maneuver smoothly on the court. They don't have the pieces. It's just figuring out how to put them together. And that's why I feel like Pop isn't really shows the talent that he has in front of him. It's like he said, he's going to start at Jakob, and I think it's because he's just starting with a solid base and then trying to put all these pieces. And I did write in an article previously that if Vassell can really work on his back to as consistent as these other skills that he has developed, I'm more of a threat on the offensive end if he can create those shots for himself and then everybody, because he is a great shooter. He is a great three-point shooter. So if he can just do that for himself, problems when he's out there. And I do feel like with Keldon missing, the poster boy, he is ready to always make some shots, especially in the paint. And that's something that's a great loss when he's not on the court. I think once they put all those pieces together and we see where they're going, then we'll be able to analyze them a little bit more. Because until then, you can't even really analyze a group individually, looking at the stats individually and continuously putting together this random idea who's starting on Thursday. You know what I mean? So we're going to continue doing that until decisions or the coaching staff makes some decisions and we get something consistent for the season.
For sure. And now one thing I noted, again, I know that in the game, the Spurs didn't look great defensively. They had a lot of 30 plus points in every quarter. That's not great to be, I think it was like 134 points Houston scored in regulation. But one thing I noticed when you just watch the players out on the court is they're going to have a lot of defensive versatility in their front court. You got those base bigs such as Jakob Poeltl and Zach Collins who can kind of drop on pick and rolls, who are going to protect the paint as best as they can. And then they have a lot more switchability out in the front court with size. They have players like Keita Bates-Job, Jeremy Sohan, like I mentioned, Isaiah Roby, where those players can play like the 4 or 5 up together or different combinations. They can go small. So I think that when they can figure out their transition defense and just get a little bit more consistent on offense, they're going to be a good defense. court. I think this team has that potential. Now, maybe not in the guards and wings. They might get exploited there. Like what Pop said was that they're not as physical. They, but maybe you need the entire lineup there. But I think that there's more potential for this team defensively than there is on offense. And then one thing, though, is that their size can be an issue because, like I said, they got out rebounded by Houston 60-44, and that could end up being an issue where I saw like Alperen Şengün getting multiple rebounds, Bruno Fernando. So that could be an issue for this team. What was that other dude's name? I forgot that other guy's name. What was his name? Anyway, one of the other Rockets players just kind of kept scoring in the paint, getting got a lot of rebounds. He was one of the rookies. Who was it?
Either not Tari or
it was Tari Eason. There you go. Yeah, so it was Tari Eason that had his way in there. So what are your thoughts? Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about their defensive potential, the Spurs?
I feel like the potential is there. It's just a matter of what even Isaiah during media day did say he could switch between the 4 and the 5, and he's willing to go wherever. Malachi said the same thing. He was like, I'm available wherever you need me. We're kind of hearing that develop in the culture until you have guys running around on the court and leaving these spaces open and screens for guys on the offensive end. So I feel like that is a great quality under control, because you're not going to get anywhere. Like, you can't play defense if you're not still at some point protecting the rim. And I think, like I said, I think it's there. But development definitely needs some communication and needs to be known what role. And I feel like he knew what role to play when the other role was taken. And that comes with, he was playing with Keldon, Jakob, and DeJounte, of course. And he got to learn those, because now he's on the court with a completely different, lineup. Of course, it's preseason, but it's still going to be he's going to have to do that all over again. So he may have to, regain that confident skill, but I do think he's really good at it, and it's something that needs to be translated to the rest of the guys. And that is when that's taken care of, where am I on the court now? And making this decision without somebody having, and like I said, knowing where my guy's going to go before he even gets there. But it's there. Mm-hmm. I don't think all hope is lost, is what I'm saying.
And then the last thing I wanted to bring up was that, we saw that Keita Bates' job started, but then we also saw that Romeo Langford checked in pretty late in the game. I mean, he basically checked in when it was already over, when the other players who were on Exhibit 10 contracts showed up. And the reason why I bring up those two players is because we do know that before the season begins on October 19th, waive one player who's either on a non-guaranteed contract like Trey Jones or Keita Bates' job, or a player who's on a guaranteed contract such as Romeo Langford. So I think that it was interesting, the fact that I think that they're going to involve, they want to keep Bates' job is what I see already, that they want to have him involved in their team. Whereas Langford, again, he's got so many players ahead of him in the rotation. They've got all those young guards and wings that they want to give minutes to. He's got Vassell, he's got Keldon, he's got Primo, all those different players are already ahead of him in the rotation. Again, this is something I talked about. I just think that by the time the cut down date comes on October 18th or October 17th, whenever that is, I don't know if they're going to, even though Romeo has a guaranteed contract, I don't know if they're going to keep him on the team. What are your thoughts on him, the fact that he came behind a lot of different guards and wings?
I do think he may be a last room, but I'm not banking on him being traded with Bates Diop's contract not necessarily being secure. He could have been on the court often, or he could have been on the court because they're trying to see, is he worth keeping? And I'm not gonna lie, favorite last night. If you look at his, about the same amount of time he's averaged, around 16 to 18 minutes. And he gave, I think, let me see, I want to make sure I say this. I want to make sure I know how many points he contributed. He gave us 7 points, which isn't far off from his average, about 5.7 a game. What I'm saying from last season, and he was in a preseason game, and he's wondering, and I would have expected a little bit more from him, for a guy, to be honest. So I'm not sure if just because Langford came in late that thought. I kind of want to see how this preseason goes and see if keeps making the same decisions. Is that valuable to Pop? Is that valuable for the easy replaced? Can we get those 5 points somewhere else? So, and yeah, that's kind of because he didn't really overly impress me that much.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a great point. Maybe you're right. Maybe they gave Bates-Diop all those minutes today, and maybe the next few games, but then maybe they'll give Langford some in the back end, or so because they definitely have he has a non-guaranteed contract. So again, I don't know how they're going to approach that as well, but again, I just found that a little interesting that like I've said before, he's in a tough spot, Langford, because there's so many other guards and wings that they want to give minutes to ahead of him in the rotation. So again, we'll kind of see what happens there with Langford. So yeah, that was the Spurs' opening preseason loss to the Houston Rockets on Sunday. They have 4 more preseason games coming up here. All right, so before we close out this episode, thank you to Jazz for joining me on the Spurscast, and thanks to Joe Garcia for mixing and producing this episode. From all of us at Project Spurs, stay safe and have a great day.